How do those calls evolve? How do they? I mean, who's in charge? Basically, that's what I thought when I was watching the stage. I didn't even know what was going on. It was like, wait a minute, are they racing or? Oh, wait a minute. And then they had to put it all back together afterwards. It seemed like it was an incredible mess.
I've never heard of this kid before this week. And I think he won stage 1 and then he won again on stage 5. And I was like, wow, this kid is fast.
Welcome, everybody, to Beyond the Podium. I'm Bob Roll. We're going to get into Gent-Wevelgem, Mads Pedersen on fire, Tour of Catalunya, Primoz Roglic going crazy on stage number 7, the last day, and we're going to look forward to the Tour of Flanders coming up this coming Sunday. Tadej Pogacar back in action against Mathieu Van der Poel, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Tejay Van Garderen, who had, by the way, a front row seat to all the proceedings in the Tour of Catalonia that finished yesterday. TJ, welcome. How you doing? You're a little puffy there, my friend. How was the commute home from the race yesterday?
I am not going to lie to you, Bobby. I just got home today from the Vuelta Catalunya, and me and a few of my colleagues went out and had ourselves a little night in Barcelona. So if I'm a little slow today, it's because I'm hurting for certain, Bobby. I am hurting for certain. But I'm ready to talk some bike racing, so hit me with it.
Well, Barcelona's the place to do it. Did you get some good wine going?
We had some excellent wine. We had all sorts of things going there, Bobby.
I love it. My legacy is intact. I'm glad to hear it. Well, TJ, let's talk about one of the craziest one-week races so far this year, even though there's been a lot of them because of the weather, Tour of Catalonia. Let's talk about Matt Brennan first. From my eyes, he had a couple of unbelievably impressive stage wins, and especially stage number, was it 2? Stage 1, when he came from an impossible distance to win the sprint against Tibor del Grosso.
I'm not going to lie to you, Bob. I've never heard of this kid before this week. And I think he won stage 1 and then he won again on stage 5. And I was like, wow, this kid is fast, but he's not just fast, like he's strong, right? I don't know if you saw the profile of that stage 1. That's not a normal bunch sprint. Like you're down to 80 guys. So half the bunch is dropped, and plus that weather. And that coastal road is just like up and down, steep, punchy. Like it's kind of an Amstel Gold style course. So this dude, he's gonna be one to look out for in a race like Amstel Gold or Brabantse Pijl. Like he's gonna be that kind of rider. He's not just a pure fast man bunch sprinter. He is strong and he is fast. And he got the better of my guy, Mathieu Van der Poel, who we were really gunning for on those stages. But and if you can beat a guy like Mathieu, like you know that you're good.
19 years of age. You reminded me a little bit of Peter Sagan in his heyday when he was young and just, like you said, fast and very strong to go along with that.
Yeah, Peter Sagan, he's the perfect comp for this kind of guy. Like I'm excited to see where his career goes. And I can't believe he's 19 years old. He's a teenager.
Yeah.
The dude's a teenager. Like, where are these guys coming from, man? Like, it used to be you had to do like a couple of years in the amateur ranks to come out and show yourself like that. But these guys, they're getting younger and they're getting faster, they're getting stronger, and they're getting more knowledgeable. Like I don't know what were we doing wrong there, Bobby?
I think I just got out of high school. I hadn't even started riding bikes yet, let alone racing them, especially in the World Tour winning stages.
We were too busy chasing girls, and like, going to parties or whatever. Like
exactly. I was low riding around the East Bay of the Bay Area, but that's a different story entirely, different era. But yeah, it's remarkable that how successful riders, like you said, TJ, have become in just the last few years at such a young age. And I'm not sure how that's going to translate into having a career that goes into the late 20s, early 30s. Maybe that's the other side of the coin that we won't realize for a few seasons now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it could be that, they're suppressing a lot of inner things that they'd have to get out that they weren't able to get out in their teenage years or early 20s. Or you could look at the other side of the coin and you could be like, they're taking much, much better care of themselves at such a young age that it's actually going to make them able to have a longer career. Like in my day, we used to just starve ourselves. We used to just try to be as skinny as possible. And then in the off season, we'd let ourselves go and we'd just like look forward to that night that we could just drink 6 beers and, have that kind of just like let the beast, like the Dutch would say. And these guys, they just take so much better care of themselves. So, I mean, it depends on your mentality there. I could see them, being able to go for longer, but I could also see them just kind of cracking under this pressure that now that they're put under because of it's so methodical. I don't know. I guess we'll learn. We'll have to look back in 7 years.
Yeah, exactly. Time will tell. Seemed like Catalunya, after the first few stages, was already a battle between two guys. And until the last day, it was between Primoz and Juan Ayuso, another young up-and-coming superstar from the UAE squad, trading seconds in time bonuses. And it looked like that's what happened throughout the race. Stage 7 turned out to be a little bit different. But from your perspective in the team car, it must have been pretty interesting to watch how they were chipping away at each other and were so locked tight together until the 7th stage.
Yeah, it was an exciting race, and I got to say, I loved the perspective that I got to watch it from. I was a little bit annoyed with UAE on stage 4 because we had our guy on the breakaway, Georg Steinhauser, who was away solo. It was looking like he might have had the chance to win the stage, and UAE were doing their typical just like let's pull everything back. And again, I was thinking, why do you have to pull them back? You're leading the race. Why not let the time bonuses go? Why are you kind of doing the work for Red Bull? If Red Bull were pulling, I would understand because they needed those time bonuses. They needed the stage win. They needed to take the jersey. They needed to, claw back some of the disadvantage that they had. But instead, UAE did the work for Red Bull, and Red Bull, I'm glad they kind of stuck it to UAE. They said, okay, you did all the work throughout the day. We'll go ahead and take the stage win. We'll take the jersey from you. Grazie, ciao. We didn't have to lift a finger. So I'm kind of glad that the UAE's tactics, like every now and then it comes back to bite them.
Well, that might have played big in stage number 7 when they couldn't bring Primoz back, and if they had spent too much energy at the wrong times throughout the week, that maybe was the difference in the overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. They were kind of chipping away at each other. Like, I'll get a time bonus here, a time bonus there. Primoz Roglic was doing his typical Primoz Roglic style, like I alluded to last year in the Tour. He's not the kind of guy who's gonna gash you. He's gonna paper cut you to death. He's gonna sprint for those time bonuses. He's gonna get that stage win. He's always gonna be on the good side of a split. So he'll get you for like a second here, a second there. You think you're containing him, but then all of a sudden you look up and you're 30 seconds behind him. You're like, where did he get that time? But then on stage 7 happened, and Primoz was like, you know what? I'm going toe to toe with you right now. Like, you are going to have to take my punches. If you can pull these punches, then you can win this race. But I'm putting my cards on the table, and he dropped everyone. So I was super, super impressed with Primoz Roglic. I mean, he's got to be the hot favorite for the Giro now. Like,
yeah, vintage Primoz on stage 7 on it. And that was I was impressed to see what he did physiologically and tactically, just annihilated everybody. It looked like Richard, your guy Carapaz, was going to go in for maybe a stage win, and looked to be riding really well. That must have been pleasing from the team car, watching Carapaz.
Yeah, we're excited about Carapaz. Carapaz, he's always been that guy who he builds slowly. He's one of those old school guys who, kind of he was born in the wrong era almost. Like, how back in the day people used to they would do the first race just to get their race under them, and then they would build and they would like show some promise, and then they would get into the top 10, and then they do the altitude camp, and then they get it. So Richie, he's one of those guys. He's going to build slowly. He'll be ready for the Giro. Mark my word about it. He will be ready for the Giro. He will be competitive. He'll be fighting for a podium or even the victory. He's not the kind of guy who's just going to be just smashing everyone all year round in every race. But from what we saw in Vuelta Catalunya, Richard Carapaz is going to be a name to be reckoned with in the Giro d'Italia, 100%.
Now let's talk about stage 6, which was one of the most inexplicable and difficult to understand if you're a fan of the sport. What in the heck is going on with these guys? High winds. So they cancel the big mountain climb. That might have made a big difference, and stage 7 would have been more of a procession. But anyways, from the team car, there must have been more information coming at you than all the races in the last couple of years put together on one single stage, stage 6.
Bob, I had no idea what was going on that day. Now, there were a lot of high winds. There were a lot of high winds early that morning. But
Yeah.
I mean, look, I have 3 different weather apps that I pay a fortune for, like apps that sailors use for wind, and I was looking at it and I'm like, okay, it's blowing for sure, like 20 to 25 kilometers per hour, which don't ask me to do the conversion. I work in kilometers, like I'm with a bunch of Europeans all the time. But I looked over in Figueres, which was about like 80 kilometers away from us, and it was blowing, 90 kilometers an hour, and that's super dangerous. So I would have been like, okay, if it's blowing 90 kilometers per hour, you got to cancel this thing. Everything I looked at, I was like, guys, I don't know what all the fuss is about. I get that, like, it's blowing in places around Spain, but I guess somebody took a video of something and people got nervous, and the crowd, like once people get involved, there's all like the CPA, the AIGCP, the organizer, the UCI, they all kind of want to kind of play it safe, because we've seen some things recently that, they didn't want to be embarrassed by having everyone stop on the top of a mountain and not having the buses, not having the cars. But it's always hindsight's 2020. If they're trying to play it safe, I give them credit for that. I was just a little bit like, guys, if you're gonna play it safe on any day, now's not the day to do it. That's my opinion. And when I was out there, I think the riders would have all said, yeah, in the end, the wind wasn't that bad. But I guess it could have been. That's all I'm going to say on that before I get myself in any trouble.
Well, cycling has the stadium that moves, so it's impossible to predict what might happen. And it did seem on that circumstance that the weather improved throughout the day. The opposite could have happened also. But my question is, nowadays, who ultimately has the say? To the officials on the, at the race, or is it the race director? Or is it the riders or the sports directors? Who exactly has the ultimate authority to say whether or not the race is going to happen, or it's going to be truncated, or they're going to take the GC at a certain point in the race? How do those calls evolve? Who's in charge, basically? That's what I thought when I was watching the stage. I didn't even know what was going on. It was like, wait a minute, are they racing? Or, oh, wait a minute. And then they had to put it all back together afterwards. It seemed like it was an incredible mess. But who has the authority, TJ?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I don't know, because a lot of the riders were saying things like, I had people telling me things from all different directions. Like a soigneur, we had a soigneur who was from the area who was saying like, oh yeah, I spoke to this guy who said this. And then I'd have a rider who was saying, oh yeah, this is what's going on the group chat. And then I'd get a message from the organizer saying, here's a new parcours. But this is kind of a plan B. We're not really sure if we're going to implement it. Stay tuned. So I'm getting information from all different sides, and I'm kind of like, who do I listen to? So I was trying to tell my riders, you know what? Stay calm. I'm going to wait for information from the organizer. Don't listen to anybody else. Just like, I will give you just what's coming through me from the radio tour or what's coming through on the group chat that we have with the organizer, and I will give you the accurate information. So don't listen to like the heads of state of the peloton because they think they're the boss. Like, just listen to me, because I will just feed through what the organizer's doing. But the riders seem to have the information before I even had it, because so I honestly don't know. Like, the riders would say, I'm hearing this, and then 5 minutes later I would hear that on the radio tour, and I'd be like, you guys are actually correct, but like, why did you get that information 5 minutes before I did? So
Maybe,
Bobby, I don't know. There's a lot of different entities in cycling, and it's good that the power is spread out, but every now and then it gets a little bit convoluted in some of these stressful situations. And like you said, the stadium moves, and it's difficult to make the right call, and always they're going to lean on the side of safety, which they did. And in the end, we saw a great race by an American winner, Quinn Simmons. So
true. It was
chapeau to Quinn.
25Ks instead of a big mountain stage, but
Hey,
yeah,
crit racing, man. Crit racing.
Maybe maybe there was a little bit of battle fatigue, because throughout this spring, it seems like almost every single stage race has been interrupted by horrible weather.
Yeah, it's been a rough spring in Europe. All of a sudden, it was like it went from a rough spring of just rain and cold and just, yeah, just every single race. I felt so badly for these riders who they were just going out 240 kilometers in Tirreno Adriatico in freezing rain. And then all of a sudden, from one day to the next, you could see from stage one of Catalunya, it was freezing rain. These guys were just getting hammered on. And then from stage two onward, it was great. I landed into Mallorca today, and it's just, I'm like, man, I want to ride my bike. I want to be outside. I want to go jump off a cliff into the sea, because it's great weather now. It's funny how it just flipped. It went from bad to just great all of a sudden from one day to the next.
Well, it seemed like the weather was better in Belgium than it was in southern Spain for Catalonia, which Mads Pedersen took maximum advantage of in Gent-Wevelgem. An impressive, I think that's his third win in Gent-Wevelgem. No Van der Poel, no really Wout van Aert as a factor, no Tadej Pogacar, but Mads Pedersen proving to be a rider to reckon with for the rest of the classics, and had another incredible day in Gent-Wevelgem. I was impressed with Mads. 70 kilometers plus by himself, and it was just absolutely phenomenal what he did by himself in Gent-Wevelgem. I loved it.
Yeah, that was an incredible ride. I mean, Mads Pedersen, he's like one of those guys you forget that he's been a world champion. He's won multiple stage wins of the Tour de France. He's won just about everything that you could note except a monument. And he's due a big one. I think he's kind of one of those underrated guys who's just, he's not given the respect he's deserving, but at the same time, he went solo with like 60 plus K to go. He's a sprinter. He can win sprints. Why did he go solo? Like, why are the riders' tactics to go solo these days? Like, usually Gent-Wevelgem, I've watched that race since I was a kid. I'm sure you've raced it plenty of times. I've never raced the race personally. I've done a few races up north, never Gent-Wevelgem, but that race usually comes down to a 20-man sprint, like from what I remember watching it growing up. But now people are just sticking these solo moves. Like, what tactically? Why are they doing that? Especially for someone as fast as Mads Pedersen, who can rely on a sprint.
Yeah, my question is, who is not chasing, or is it's somebody like Van der Poel or Mats Pedersen, when they go, they're stronger than the whole peloton. It's mind blowing. But whose job is it to chase in that circumstance? Is maybe the best question to ask.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to always attack when teammates are low. If people are down on teammates, then you don't have the team to maybe actually have that formalized chase. So then you're kind of having to work together with other people to get that chase going. And if you get, some people are tired and they're sitting on, like we had Ben Healy on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he would always stick these long solo moves. And he said that it's actually tactically a very smart thing to do because you never have full cohesion behind. So if you're counting on the disruption from behind, then, one guy solo is actually faster or stronger than five guys not working well together. So, I mean, that could be the tactic. Now, I hate to bring this up, but like every now and then you get a little bit of advantage from those motorbikes out there, like saying like, oh, we got a really good shot at Mats Pedersen and we're doing a little bit of motor.
That is legitimate. That is a legitimate part of bike racing nowadays. And their speeds are so high that the advantage is really remarkable. Even it doesn't look that close sometimes. You're still getting maybe, 3, 4, 5% is freaking huge. It is massive nowadays.
You would be shocked at what people are willing to do to get even 0.5% of advantage. Like I see these riders, they're weighing every single calorie of food that they put into their body. They are meticulously deciding what chain ring am I going to ride for today? What wheels am I going to ride? What tire pressure am I going to ride on this given day? Am I going to take bicarbonate? Am I going to, is it going to be a 90 calorie or a 90 grams of carbs per hour versus 120 grams of carbs per hour? Everything is down to such a science that, like you said, if you get 2 or 3% out of something, that is a massive, massive gain. That's not a marginal gain. That's a massive gain.
And it's impossible to predict at the start of any bike race who might have a little advantage behind the motos, but generally speaking, it seems like the guys in the front.
You're better off going out front. You're better off going out front.
All right. I feel like it's not been the difference between winning and losing in the races that I've been commentating on at the moment, but on the ground it might be a different story. So maybe Mads.
From the director's car, we're always being like, get the motorbikes out of there. But that's the thing, Bob. It happens both ways. Like if you're up in the breakaway, you're saying like, get the motorbikes out of there. But if you're also chasing and you have a guy in the breakaway, you're like, get the motorbikes off of the front of the peloton. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. Like if the advantage, it's going to happen like on both sides. But depending on which side you're on, that's the side that you're going to complain about, right?
Absolutely. We'll have plenty of races to deconstruct the all of the nuances in cycling. And the next big one is the Ronde, the Super Bowl. Belgium, maybe we should talk a little bit about Belgium. I always love racing in Belgium. Maybe the most cycling insane country on earth. Knowledge, passion, the Schlugs. Belgium is the place, and the Tour of Flanders. I love seeing the Schlugs in their natural environment on the hills. On the hill of the Tour of Flanders, going crazy for the stars. They know every guy in the peloton. And so the Tour of Flanders, a very special race, unique cobbled climbs throughout, and then incredibly tiny roads, twists and turns, also a 6+ hour day of racing. So I'm looking forward to another Sunday, not in hell like Paris Roubaix, but maybe in cycling heaven, Sunday in heaven for the Schlugs.
Oh yeah. Oh man, Belgium shuts down for the Tour of Flanders. It's like I don't know what it's like. It's like Martin Luther King Day, Christmas, and New Year's all wrapped into one. Like Belgium shuts down for Tour of Flanders. It is a national holiday, and And yeah, all the schlugs will be out. There'll be plenty of frites and beer, plenty of cigar smoke going around, and everyone's going to be watching Tour of Flanders. And I don't know, who's your money on, Bobby?
Whew. I'd like to see Tadej dance away like he did a couple of years ago. Um, but I think Mathieu Van der Poel is on an even higher level than he was in 2023 when Tadej got a little bit of the better of Van der Poel. It was another huge battle between Mads Pedersen, Mathieu Van der Poel, and Tadej Pogacar. And Pogacar, on that case, this is 2023, stronger and proving himself to be not just a Tour de France contender, but an incredible one-day rider as well. But I think that, in my opinion, Matthew is riding a little bit better this spring. That might change in the summer. That might be different next spring. But this spring, it seems to me, Van der Poel is just too strong for everybody. And it's a race that maybe is not quite hard enough for Tadej to get the advantage that he would need to do over Van der Poel.
Yeah, well, I think everyone who's ever raced Tour of Flanders, yourself including, would take exception to saying Tour of Flanders is not hard enough, but it's one of the hardest races you could possibly do. But I would say it's not suited to him enough. I mean, he would need longer climbs, a more aerobic climb, and less anaerobic catabolic sort of efforts, which is very much more suited to like the cyclocross style of Mathieu Van der Poel. And Mathieu Van der Poel, he's just been on a tear this entire spring. When you watched what he did in Milan-San Remo, you watched what he did in E3 Harelbeke. I just don't see anyone that can hold his wheel. Now, Tadej Pogacar, I would say he will be able to hold Mathieu Van der Poel's wheel. They're both good sprinters, but if you ask me who's the better sprinter, if they're both coming to the line, I'm going to take Mathieu Van der Poel every day and twice on Sunday.
And Mads Pedersen, maybe if it rains, Mads Pedersen will be up there in the mix at the finish. That would be another great three-way battle.
I'm rooting for Mads Pedersen. I mean, I really like the guy. He seems like a great guy. I love the Danish. One of my best friends and colleagues, Matty Breschel, he's Danish, and like he roots for Mads Pedersen, and the Danish are just cool guys. So like, I don't know Mads Pedersen very well personally. I've met him a few times, I exchanged a few words with him, but I don't know him very well. But he just seems like a cool guy. I root for him. I'd be more than happy if he won. But if you're asking me to put money on someone, it's got to be Mathieu Van der Poel.
And what about if the weather is bad? Who does that favor? Or it doesn't matter.
The Dutch are no strangers to bad weather.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, Matt seems to be exceptionally good when it's really crummy weather. And
he is a tough dude. He is a tough dude. Hey, especially that world championship that he won. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was raining cats and dogs. It was up there in Yorkshire, I believe. Oh man, it was like, that was the most horrendous weather I think I've ever seen in a bike race. And it did not faze him in the slightest. Bagged himself the rainbow jersey.
So if it comes down to a sprint, 99 times out of 100, Matthew's going to beat Tadej. But does that maybe, if Tadej, obviously, he knows what his capabilities are, maybe that encourages him to go from distance and make everybody chase him. If that's maybe Tadej's only chance to win, and it's the trend that seems to be successful in one-day races in recent years, the last few seasons.
That's true. That's what he tried to do in San Remo. Now San Remo is not quite as hard, not quite as punchy, not quite as technical as Flanders. He tried to do that, couldn't quite shake Mathieu Van der Poel. If he can shake him, he can stick it. But if he can't shake him, I think he's going to lose it.
Well, it's going to be a great race. Always love the Ronda. And TJ, thank you kindly. Hopefully you're feeling better in the next couple of days. And the weather holds. You can go out and get on the bike in Mallorca. It's a great place to ride.
Yeah. I just need a few hours sleep and to sweat it out on the bike, and I'll be right back there.
All right. Thanks, TJ. See you soon. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Good to see you, Bobby.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.